Hi everyone, this is Portia. I am not asleep again. If you've watched my channel before, you know I do not go to sleep. Okay, it is 11:52, and as promised, I came back to you with some topics on books. Today's book is going to be The Crystal Cave, and just for a review, for those of you who did not get to see my first post about Christian books, we went over Heck, which is a children's book about the different layers and circles of heck. Okay, that is Christian based. It tells kids what happens or in those different circles of, well, I think y'all get it. We can say hell, okay, but it's called Heck. Where the Bad Kids Go is the first book. The second one is Rapitia, if I'm saying that correctly, and then they just keep going through the circles. And then we went through Dragons in Our Mist. This is the second book, The Candlestone. I do not have the first book, but I have the first book. It's called Raising Dragons, I believe. And we talked about how that book was pretty good because it teaches not just that God made everything and all the creatures and everything, but it also goes through prayer and how to pray. So, and it has examples of prayers as well, based on the different situations the characters find themselves in, and you can find those prayers actually inside the text. So you don't have to worry about, oh, they said the girl's praying, but then it doesn't tell you how she's praying, what she's saying, and how that prayer affected the characters throughout the story. It literally labels the prayer in there. We love it. It's a great read for kids and adults. Yes, you guys, these are my private books. I bought these books because they are really good. Now, if you've read the title of this video, this is about thinking like a Christian when the world is not. And our basis, our topic is books for this video. And the reason why I say thinking like a Christian when the world is not, because it's very easy to get your hands on a book that's fantasy based, that's superhero based, that's just, it's very easy to find fiction books and nonfiction books that are so worldly. Like the topics are just ridiculous, how creative and how outspoken and full of witchcraft and mischief and sex and everything that these books have in them. So how do you go from reading these type of books and being in a worldly state of mind to reading them being in a Christian state of mind? And this is what we are going to talk about today. So as I said, this book is called The Crystal Cave. It was one of my favorite books coming out of high school because to me, I didn't understand how to let go and let God, as they put it. Actually, that is a song. It's a very good song. Dwayne Woods, I believe. But, anyways, I never understood. Let go, let God, okay? But reading this book, I started to understand. And it's crazy because this is not a Christian book, you guys. There is some reference to like a nunnery and how the main character's mom becomes a nun, but they don't speak on Christian matters. They speak on sword fights and wizardry and stuff like that. So, how does this book help your state of mind when it comes to being a Christian? This is topic for today. This is what we're going to talk. So just we're not going to keep it long. We're going to keep it hopefully 30 minutes, under 30 minutes. I'm going to stick around that. But The Crystal Cave, if you've ever read this book, is about Merlin, how he gets his power, who his father is, or who we think his father is. If I'm remembering correctly, I think they do tell who his father is. Yes, they do tell who his father is. And they talk about his mother and everything like that. But this is basically how he accessed his power and how he used that power to help himself and King Uther and later on King Arthur. But we don't get too big into King Arthur in this book. This is mostly about Uther. Arthur is introduced in this book, but we find out that Merlin's a few years older than him. He's more around Uther's age, which is crazy because most tellings of Arthur and Merlin, sometimes they have them at a similar age. But this book, Merlin's an old man, the literal, legit, classic view of Merlin. He's an old man, beard, and crazy magic. Okay. So, how do we reference this to a Christian standpoint? How do we use what Merlin learns in his life to help us out? Well, in this book, Merlin was born with magic. His mother had a bit of magic in her, or I believe it was his grandma or something like that. But Merlin's born with magic. He's born with that ability. It's never been a time where he didn't have it. As far as this book explains, he just had to access it. And from a Christian standpoint, when we are born, we have the ability to access everything God has for us. It's in us already to access that, but we have to come to a realization that it's there, and we have to be able to, I'm not going to go too far. We just have to come to that realization that that is there for us. Okay. Now, the next point I want to bring out is that Merlin not only had a broken home, his dad wasn't around, his home, I believe, burns down at one point. His mom is not so well to do. She's in a convent. He's wandering the land and he's in service of the king at some point. But before that, he's going through a lot of stuff and he has to figure out where his place in the world is. And that's like a lot of us. Being Christian, you have a lot of things that you might have to deal with. You come from a broken home, a single parent home. Maybe you don't have parents, maybe you're an orphan, okay? And it's just a lot to deal with. And you have to deal with bullies and stereotyping and just a lot of things that will make you feel like you have no place in this world. You might start off up here, you might start off here, you might start off all the way at the bottom. But Merlin goes to all those places, comes to himself, and then ends up back again in this whole realm of what next. And we have those feelings as being Christian. And it's very important to understand what Merlin realizes at this point in his life and throughout the rest of his life, that even though these things happen, there is a bigger plan for our lives. And if we just, and I'm getting back to that point that don't want to hit yet, but if we just get to this point of realizing that God has something for us, then we can live and we don't have to worry about what comes next. We just let it come and we get through it. Now, to this point that I didn't want to hit on yet, because I feel like that is like the biggest point in this book, the biggest point in this book that you ever, ever, ever come across. And the biggest point in a Christian life that you will ever come across is to let go. And in Merlin's case, let the powers decide. But for a Christian, let go and let God. Like I said, the Dwayne would reference, you guys, let go and let God. Because in this book, Merlin often says that he feels something happening, something's in the atmosphere, or he sees something and he's not looking at something that's related to it. Like he might be sitting here talking to you, and all of a sudden the screen might go hazy, or he might be looking into a fire, and all of a sudden he'll see figures and everything like that. And instead of fighting it, he just lets go and he embraces that. He embraces that power, that vision, that sense of something is taking over and I need to let it work. And this is that let go point. Let go and let, for Merlin, like I said, his powers take over. And for us, let go and let God take over. And I say this is the main point of the book because throughout Merlin's travels, throughout him coming into his powers, throughout him working for Uther and knowing that one day he might have to work for Arthur, he, like, it's like a repetitive theme. Like, I have to let these powers work. I have to let these powers work. I have to leave myself out of it and I have to just let things go. I have to stop thinking so hard and I just got to let it take over. And that's what we have to do when it comes to God. We have to learn not to be so hard on ourselves. We have to learn not to let life push us around. We have to learn not to over analyze and try to figure things out ourselves. Most times in life, it's a let go thing. Let go and let God. Stop over processing. Sorry. Stop over processing. Stop trying to figure everything out yourself. Stop trying to put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. It's not for us to decide, it's for God to decide. And once we realize that, we will stop making life so difficult for ourselves. I came into that realization over the past year or so. I am like, I'm one of those people, like, when it comes to something I want to do or something that I feel needs to be done, I am just like on it, on it, on it, on it, on it. And if it doesn't work out, I'm really upset. And I had to come to this realization that even when things don't work out, you shouldn't get upset. You should just let God handle it. Even when I want to do something, I shouldn't just like run into it, go for broke. I should sit down for a second, talk to God, let him tell me yes or no. Let him lead me here or there and tell me what to do next. Okay? Because a lot of times we try to take on too much for ourselves. Merlin does that in the book and he gets drained. I mean, he's seriously drained because he's trying to force this magic to come. He's trying to make things happen. And you will see many times in the book where he is just worn out from these powers because he doesn't know how to control them. And he's always trying to, well, when he first started getting the powers, he's trying to force things or he's trying to understand everything. And that's what we do with God. We try to understand everything. We want to know his plans, we want to know his goals for us. We want to know what's going to happen when I step out the door in the morning. We want to know what's going to happen when we wake up in the morning. We haven't even opened our eyes, and already we're on this rant that the world is horrible, the day's gonna be horrible, or the sun's out, so the day's gonna be great. Like we just don't know, but we are always analyzing everything, even with our moods and even with what we eat in the morning. We're just like completely, totally analyzing, analyzing, analyzing. But that let go, let God point, it just brings to realization that we don't need to be like that. It's hard. It's very hard not to control your life. It's very hard not to do that. But the more we try to control, the more we tend to mess things up. I'm going to say that again. The more we try to control, the more we tend to mess things up. I remember at one point in my life, I was having problems with a certain person, and I got to this point where they talk to me like this. Well, I'm going to talk to them like that. No cursing involved, you guys, but it was kind of like a disrespecting. Like they would just come to me and be like, do this, do that, because I said so and I want it this way and blah, blah, blah. So I just be like, be quiet. Don't talk to me. I'm not doing it. Get out of my face, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? They didn't show me respect. I didn't show them respect. And I felt like maybe if they saw me acting like they were, it would click in their minds. I don't want to be treated like that, so I shouldn't be treating her like that. Never did, you guys. It never does. It never clicks in the other person's mind. Sometimes, especially during those times, we need to say, okay, Lord, this is what I'm dealing with. You already see it. I'm just going to bring it to your attention to let you know that I see what you're seeing. Okay, because you're here with me. You're omnipresent. You're always around me. You always know what's going on. You see it. I see it. Now, what you gonna do about it? And then you just take your hands off of it. Okay? Just take your hands off of it. You can pray for that person. You can pray for yourself, but keep your hands off of it. And I realized something so important. Once I decided to take my hands off of that situation, I realized that it wasn't even as big a deal as I was making it out to be. Because this is what happened, you guys. Literally, no lie, no kidding. This person came to me one day and they're like, I want this done. I want this way. And you're going to do it. And I know you're going to do it because that's just the person you are. Like, literally, this is what this person was telling me. Like, you're going to do this. And you know what I started doing? I just started ignoring. I let it go through one ear out the other. And they would leave the work for me to do, and they would just sit it there. And they would just know beyond a reasonable doubt that I was going to do this work. And you know what, guys? I got to that point where I was just like, you know what? This is so stupid. It's just so dumb. Like, it has to be, the work got to be done. It has to be done. If I don't feel like doing it, I don't have to do it. It's not my work. But I'm if I'm right there and it needs to be done, and there's no reason for me not to do it, like, why not do it? So that's exactly how I started taking it. So I would get up, I would go over and see what needs to be done. And if it was along the lines of something that I had to do anyways, I would just add it to my work. It was like what, 20, 30 minutes at top, just adding that work. Just 20 to 30 minutes. And then after I stopped feeling like it was a chore, then it was like 15 minutes. It didn't take that long. It wasn't that big a deal. And then that person started realizing, oh, I don't have to be ignorant to get what I want. So then they started talking to me better. Can you do this for me? Or, oh, I left that for you. Could you see to it? Because I can't get to it right now. And then it became questions, you guys. It became questions in more of a respectful tone. And I was like, oh, wow, you asked me to do it. And it felt so good to be asked to do something. Okay. I was going to do it anyways, but it felt good to get that ask. And it was so nice. And then I felt my spirit like freeing up. I didn't feel so bogged down with everything anymore. It wasn't a chore anymore. It was just something that I could do if I wanted to, or I didn't have to do it. Okay. And it was just really simple, and I loved it, and it was so nice. And you know what, you guys? This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. When you read books like this, it might not be written for the Christian experience. But if you keep your mind heavenly minded when you read things, you can get reference. You get symbolic messages, metaphors, things like that, that you can take from certain books and you can apply them to your life. And it's crazy because a lot of people will say, you know, don't read that book. But if it's something you've already read before you became Christian, if it's a book that, just like somehow became your favorite book before you became Christian, before that light bulb pops on to where I shouldn't be reading things like this because it's magic based and it has all these things in it that might tempt me to go into like this fantasy world where I have to be a magician, where I have to use magic, where I have to do these things. Before your mind goes into that state, you know, it's good to analyze yourself. See where your mindset is. And when you come across this book, or if you already come across books like this, even the Harry Potter books, you guys, if you're a Christian and you've read the Harry Potter books, you need to have a mindset to say, this is just fiction, it's just entertainment, but I've already read this book. Now, what can I get out of it? If you can't get something out of a book, you should not be reading it. That's a very good point that I've learned over the years. Almost every book I read, I can get something from, but not just entertainment, because these books are entertainment, they're fiction, you guys. They're made to keep our minds from being bored and made to keep us from wondering. They're made to give some of us an escape from the craziness we face every day. It's entertainment, you guys. If you cannot get something from your entertainment, something that teaches you a value, a gut lesson, or how to be a better person, a better Christian, you should not be reading books like that. Something that's just a big waste of time. You should not be reading it because everything we do, it even says in the Bible, what you subject yourself to becomes who you are. It gets into your mind, down into your heart. You guys, like when I was a kid, what was in my mind was My Little Ponies and Care Bears and stuff like that. And while I was in that child realm, in that child state of mind, I believed in the Care Bear share and whatever it was called, and that if you work together, all of a sudden everything would just magically, be okay. I was a kid, you guys, 5, 6 years old. But that's what was in my mind. So that's what I just assumed worked. Okay. And that's what I believed worked. As I became an elementary schooler, you guys, I started reading books like, how we had the accelerated reading points, you guys. You read so many books, like in junior high, high school, you read so many books and you would get so many points and you could take home a bike or something like that. So I started reading like the bigger books, the books that had the most points. And what had the most points, you guys? Harry Potter books. And I just remember thinking, I just want to get as many points as I can. I might not win because I don't have access to all the books. I didn't have a library in my room like I do now. If you've seen my other videos, I got lots of books. Okay. Books that ain't even in English. I got lots of books. But it took me to read those books at that certain time in my life where I was having, a hard time coming out of my shell because I was like seriously shy. My group of friends didn't know I was shy because I was comfortable around them. So I talked. But around other people, I was like dead shy. Like it would kill me for somebody to say hi to me that I didn't know in the hallway. And it was just like this big, and then I had to take a deep breath and I had to swallow and I had to just force my way through the conversation with a smile on my face. And it was just like so hard. And then with the accelerated reading and all the points you would get, I realized, you guys, I could disappear from the world for a nice length of time if I read these books. And like I said, one of the highest point books was a book about that thick, and it was a Harry Potter book. So I read those books, you guys. I read Harry Potter and I read Twilight and I read almost any book I could get my hands on because I needed to escape from reality so that during that next class period when we had to work as a group or during that next walk down the hall when I knew somebody was going to call my name, somebody I didn't know because they knew one of my cousins or they knew my sibling or whatever like that. I I needed to be able to be in that calm state of mind where I didn't feel like I was fighting myself all day long. So books became something that I retreated in. Like I had to go into a story in order to make it through the day. And after that time, when I started reading more Christian based books and when I started focusing more on God and everything like that, I realized that those stories were shaping my character. And I didn't want my character shaped like something from a fiction novel. I didn't want to be that girl who wore all black and thought about vampires all day. I didn't want to be the girl who read a fantasy story and thought that one day I was just going to wake up with some magic dragon egg and I was going to be able to defeat the forces that be or whatever like that. It was just so much stuff that came from reading all of those books. But what saved me was I had a Christian mother who would always tell me these things aren't real. And I had a Christian aunt who believed in literature. And what they would do was they would give us quarters and they would give us dollars and they would take us to secondhand store and we would buy books and we would read books. We would read books all the time. And we had to get something out of that book. We had to explain what we get out of it. We had to explain what was good about the book, what was bad about the book, and what it meant to us. We just had to evaluate everything. We had to evaluate ourselves and understand, how that made us as a person. And first, what I got out of it was being able to read better because I am dyslexic. So it takes me a while sometimes to read, especially when I was a kid. It took forever. And when I got into reading and I started reading more often, I realized, oh my God, books can take me into another world. And even though I'm shy, I can interact with all of these characters in my head. And it was just so beautiful. But then as I was growing up, like I said, you guys, I had to realize what I was really taking from all these books and what was being left on me. These impressions, these ideas, these um, fictional worlds that weren't real, but I just would have loved to be a part of that because I was so shy and because I couldn't face the fact that every interaction that I had with other people made me literally want to bawl my eyes out. Okay. I didn't have a handy dandy puppet to talk through like Robbie on Victorious, you guys. I didn't have a pet pig to take around with me like you see people do like on Uptown Girls and stuff like that. All I had was myself, my mom, who worked all day long and even now has two jobs. So I barely see her even when I want to. And don't get me wrong, she's a great mom, great mom. Always helped us with our homework, always made sure we had food, always made sure the house was clean and that we weren't into it all the time. But, as a shy kid, those were things that helped me out, books. And like I said, when you focus on just reading a book, that's nothing. That's a wasting time out of your life. But when you focus on what you can get out of a book, that's the key, you guys. That's how you do not waste your time. And we are getting to, actually, we are at that 30-minute mark. So I'm going to end this video with a quick poem and a reminder: do not read just anything. Be able to get something out of it, okay? Especially as a Christian. If that book is not feeding your soul and your walk with Christ, do not read it. But always think like a Christian, even when the world is not, okay? Think like a Christian, even when the content that you're getting is not. Because face it, the world is not going to feed you like you need to be fed. You have to feed yourself. You have to be around other people who are going to feed you the positive Christian things, the Bible based things, the things that you need to know, and the things that will keep you going throughout your Christian journey. Okay? That's what I need you guys to understand tonight, and that's what we're going to focus on. The next time I bring a book to you guys, we are going to focus on that Christian experience, okay? And I am going to read you a poem and then I am going to say good night. And this one is another Robert Frost poem. If you saw my other video, I read from Robert Frost. I am probably going to keep reading from Robert Frost because I love Robert Frost. Okay, and I picked this poem because a lot of people know a quote from the poem, but they don't actually know the whole poem. And this is one of my favorite poems because it just makes so much sense, you guys. The quote from this poem is: "Good fences make good neighbors." And the whole story behind that is what we're going to get to now. And then I'm going to tell you why I love the poem. Okay. So this poem is actually called Mending Wall, which most people don't know because they only know the quote, "Good fences make good neighbors," but it's called Mending Wall. And it goes like this: something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast, and work on hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have had the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time, we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line, and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each, and some are loads and some are nearly balls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side, it comes to little more. There where where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine and I am maple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines. I tell him, he only says good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down, I could say elves to him. But it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. And what I love about this poem is that sometimes we don't see things, just like in the poem, he's saying we have this wall between us, and every year we have to mend it because hunters, put holes in it, rabbits dig under it. Things happen to this wall, and we don't see things happen to this wall, but every so often it needs to be mended. And then I wonder to myself, why am I mending this wall? Why does the neighbor even need to have a wall between us? What is the point of this? And the neighbor will just say to him, good fences make good neighbors. And then he's thinking, I have trees, he has trees. Our trees are completely different. I have apples, he has birch trees or whatever trees they were. And he's like, what's the point of this wall? We don't even cross into each other's land. Our trees aren't going to walk across into each other's land. What is the purpose of building this wall and mending it time and time again? What is the purpose of this? And all his neighbor says is good fences make good neighbors. And it's very clear that he has some kind of relationship with his neighbors. They're not enemies. They walk this walk together all the time. Every time it needs to be mended, they speak to each other across it. And he's like, so then what's the point of this wall? And this is the beauty of this poem. For those of us who are not in a relationship that brings about offense, we don't understand where the offense might come from. And we don't understand, like, how could somebody that I'm having a great conversation with, a great relationship with, not just a romantic relationship, maybe a friendly one or a family relationship, or even a working relationship, how could this become a problem? But you guys, it's especially when you're not a Christian, or especially when you're not in that mindset of people are people and things happen. And it doesn't have to be something huge that happens. It could be something really small that leads to a misunderstanding. And that misunderstanding has not been cleared up because the person brushed it off for a minute, or and you didn't understand that it was something that disturbed that person. And it could just spiral until that person blows up, or until they say something to you which causes you to blow up. And then all of a sudden it's like, how did we get here? How did we get here? And that's what I like about this poem. You don't understand why boundaries are needed, but they are needed because if we don't have boundaries, then we do tend to step on each other's toes. And it becomes this thing where we're no longer in this peaceful relationship anymore. But there's a feud going on, and how did we get to this feud? Or how did we get to this point where we're not talking to each other, we're not speaking to each other, and we just don't understand it? And maybe we're not in that place where we feel comfortable talking about it yet, and it just turns into this thing where now we're frenemies. And how did this happen? So this, mending walls, there's something that doesn't like the wall because something's always tearing down your wall. But good fences make good neighbors, which means, and I believe that the songwriter said it best, sweep around your own front door. Don't try to sweep around mine. Don't get nosy, okay? Your neighbor will tell you what they want to tell you. Don't pry. That's one way you can keep that wall built, okay? When you're friends with somebody, don't just dig into their life, okay? Let them tell you what they want to tell you when they're ready to tell you. And don't be so opinionated. Like, you have to listen to me because I'm your friend and you better do what I tell you to do. That's not how this works, you guys. We got to keep those fences in place. We have to let somebody open that fence door for us and let us in, okay? We don't just climb over the wall or knock it down or just, overstep those boundaries. We need boundaries because boundaries keep us in line and keep us from offending each other. And even though some of our friends are like family to us, there are some times where we can just push those buttons. We don't even know we're pushing them sometimes. Or sometimes we do know we're pushing them and we just expect them to forgive us if we step on their toes. It doesn't work that way. So walls are needed, you guys. Boundaries are needed, okay? And we don't always know where those boundaries are or what those boundaries are or how to figure out those boundaries. So we need to open our mouths and we need to ask. In this story, in this poem, well, it's kind of a mini story, but it's a mini story. But in here, he asked the neighbor. He's beating around the bush, like, why do we need this? Why do we need this wall? What's the wall for? Um, is something going to happen if we don't have the wall? And the man just says, good fences make good neighbors. So he's just saying that you might not see a reason for a wall. I might not be able to explain what this wall is for, but just know that this wall is here for a reason. And if it was down, we will quickly find out what those reasons are. So when somebody's putting a boundary in place, what whether it's in a friendship or in a work environment or something like that, when they're putting a boundary in and not telling you everything or they're not showing you everything, they're not letting you do everything, it is for a reason, you guys. So let's not overstep. Let's try to understand where that person is coming from. What Let's try to think about it from our point of view. If you have a friend who doesn't want you telling their kids what to do, even though they're like family to you, like you've grown up together, both of you guys have got whoopings together, you guys. You guys have had the switch on your behinds together. You've been in the bathtub together. Like, you guys have shared those family things, even just being friends. You guys have that family bond. Let's and they don't want you telling their kids what to do. They don't want you stepping in and teaching their kids anything. Respect that because you don't know where they're coming from. That person who might have, you know, spanked you guys together or sent you to the bath together, that person might have been an aunt or a cousin or maybe just one mom and not the other mom. They might have been at your house all the time. You've never been to their house. You don't know what happened at their house behind closed doors, you guys. You don't know what they went through mentally, and they don't want that happening to their kid. And so they're putting a boundary in place to make themselves feel better. So don't overstep. Let those good fences keep you guys good neighbors, okay? And that is what we talked about today, how to see the Christian side of stories that aren't so Christian. And that was The Crystal Cave, you guys. I did a brief review of that in case somebody is going to read that book. I don't like to spoil the endings. So that was a brief view of that. And then, of course, Robert Frost, one of my favorite poets. We're gonna get to William Blake, you guys. I love me some William Blake, but that was Robert Frost, you guys. And we're gonna end on that Robert Frost note. Good fences make good neighbors, and not just for the world, friendships that are worldly based, because the Bible says, do not be unequally yoked. So keep them fences up, especially in that sense. I have come across many good people who are gay or who hadn't found out what they want to be yet. I don't condone it, but I do love those people. They are really good people. But I kept my fences up. I let them know, like, hey, I'm not gonna hang out with you because I don't support this, but I do love you. If you come talk to me, I will be glad to talk to you. You got a question for me, I will be glad to answer that question for you. We got homework to do together. Let's do this homework, y'all. I don't got nothing wrong with that. But I'm not gonna go like to a party with you. I'm not gonna go and like support a rainbow cause or go to a pride parade or anything like that. That's not my life. I'm keeping my fence up, you guys. We're gonna stay friends. We're gonna stay friendly, okay? We're gonna stay friendly. I'm not gonna put you down, okay? Because that's not my job. As a Christian, the Bible told me to love my neighbor, to love one another, to be good to people, you know? It's not for me to judge them. God is going to talk to them. God is going to help them. And I have seen God do it. I have been friends with somebody, and because I put that fence in place, I didn't have to go to them and say, well, God doesn't like this, and you better not do this, and you have to do that, and you better not be telling me about your business and stuff like that. No, they come to me and they have asked me, what does the Bible say about this? Or what are your thoughts concerning this, and this? And what makes you so sure about yourself? And why have you never ever questioned yourself on this account? And I have been able to give them my honest opinion and not step on their toes and not be that person who's trying to force them, you guys. So, yes, these poems, these lessons, these books, they work from a Christian standpoint. We just have to see it. We have to let that work, you guys. Let God show us and tell us what we're supposed to understand and what we're supposed to do. Let Him lead us. Pray about it, you guys. And when it comes to different situations in life, keep those boundaries, okay? People, I'm gonna put it this way, the world puts boundaries on us where we can't talk about stuff in certain places, where we can't tell them about certain things. So then put those boundaries in place for them. If you don't want to hear about that relationship, or you don't want to hear about them partying, you don't want to hear all the curse words and everything like that, there's nothing wrong with saying, I love you, but that's not part of my life. I don't want to hear those things. Please do not bring those things to me. That's not what I want in my life. That's not what I want to feed my spirit with or anything like that. Keep those boundaries in place because, as the poem said, good fences do make good neighbors. All right, you guys, that is my time for now. I am done. No more preaching for me. Although that was a teaching moment. No more teaching for me at this moment. I will see you guys later. I love you and God bless. And remember, let's keep it Christian minded, even when the world is not. Don't be like me. Go to sleep. All right. Love you. God bless.